easy at all to talk after Fabienne about this topic, relation between epistemology and democracy, so apologize me because of my ignorance, because actually my perspective will be perspective of the social epistemology, not political philosophy. So probably I will talk about some things you think it's trivial, so apologize me about all this. So my perspective is the perspective of social epistemology, and only very brief clarification what is social epistemology, what is the relation of the social epistemology and the question of epistemology and democracy. Yeah, I rely here on the Alvin Goldman's definition of social epistemology. Social epistemology is a branch of traditional epistemology that studies the epistemic properties of individuals that arise from their relations to others, but also the epistemic properties of groups and social systems. And actually Goldman argues for expanding social epistemology's scopes, it's expansionist social epistemology, by actually adding several further topics that are not typically addressed in traditional epistemology, but according to him, are sufficiently continuous with traditional epistemology, belongs to the real epistemology, is not, you know, a kind of social constructivism or some other approaches to epistemology. Actually, he thinks it's not a real epistemology. So, expansionist social epistemology embraces two new topics in epistemology and social epistemology. First, very hot topic in epistemology and social epistemology is epistemic properties of groups, about the collective exhaustive agents, and the other, which is more important, of course, for me now, is the influence of social systems and their policies on epistemic outcomes. That includes, obviously, epistemic approaches to democracy. So, as actually Fabian said before, we need to, we actually, there's a difference between political justification of democracy and epistemological justification of democracy, and it's very interesting idea that epistemological justification of democracy are far more discussed by philosophers of politics than by epistemologists. You know, it concerning the conversation theory and deliberative democracy, etc. So I'll try to enter to this question of justification of epistemological justification of democracy from the perspective of the epistemology of social epistemology. It's true that the majority of social epistemologists emphasizes that genuine deliberative democracy improves the community's overall knowledgeability. Is the, you know, general point, Goldman, Kitcher, and the other. But if we want to defend democracy because it does particularly well in making correct political decisions, it would be helpful to show how some features of democracy, deliberative democracy, which contribute to an optimal detection of significant problems and the solution of them, and why such features of democracy are comparatively epistemically more valuable than alternative ones. So I will rely here on Goldman's very old classification, actually from the 1987 his article in Synthesis. Actually, he distinguishes three epistemic approaches to social practices, social institutions, and the social systems, as the veritism, consensualism, and the expertism. It seems to me that veritism actually is a proceduralism, and I will say a few words about that later. And it seems to me that we can put the representative of such an approach is Cohen, Asplund, and Goldman himself. There is another approach, is consensualism, it's Habermas, Rawls, and Kitcher, and expertism. Actually, as you can see, we have Plato could be classified as expertise, or the Mill, but no other more, no other recent or contemporary philosopher as I know. So very briefly, what these positions assumes. Veritism and proceduralism is position actually in which it is said that epistemically justified is system, belief, practice, institution that promotes truth-conductive procedures. Consensualism is position in which it is said that epistemically justified is system attained by consensus or based on consensus. Expertism, epistemically justified is system that reflects, promotes, or supports the expert's stances. So, here's the plan of my paper. In the first part, I would like to very briefly say a few words about consensualism and proceduralism, two predominant epistemological approaches to democracy, and it's interesting both of them avoid the role of experts. In the second part, I would like to put the question, what is wrong with experts? What is wrong or non-democratic with experts? And in the third part, I would like to defend a kind of expertism or to deference to experts that it seems to me can be epistemically and politically justified as an additional constraint for deliberative democracy. I will rely here on the idea of derivative authority of experts, and I will claim that there is nothing non-democratic in deference to experts. Democratic principle of epistemic equality of participants does not oppose to deference to experts, I will claim, and I will also claim that democratic rationale should not abolish epistemically unjustified conduct. So, about the consensualism, only to clarify the positions, it seems to me that here in Habermas is the clear representative of this position of the consensualism. He said that epistemological legitimacy of democracy is defined in relation to an ideal consensus. What is ideal consensus? Is rational consensus between equals in ideal communicational circumstances. So democratic deliberation generates a rational consensus among citizens, he told us, and the rational consensus ensures epistemically well, if not even true, in accordance with his consensual theory of truth, epistemically well, outcome that legitimates the requirement to obey democratic decisions. It seems to me that in this camp is also Rawls, who said that political associations should rest on shared political values which provide public reasons that all might reasonably accept. It has on overlapping consensus, and so this commitment actually presupposes a background consensus on political values and constitutional essentials. But what is very important, according to me, for Rawls, it does not define this background consensus. It does not define or guarantee correct outcome or ideal consensus. So it seems to me that we need to register here a kind of Rawlsian epistemological abstinence. It seems to me that Rawls remains curiously skeptical about the prospects of social epistemology to provide a good epistemological defense of democracy. So it seems to me that here it's very clear his stance about the priority of normative political justification over epistemology. So this is this camp, but not completely. And finally, Philip Kitcher, who actually wrote about the science in democratic society, but obviously he supposes that the value of democracy is actually is value of conversation and mutual engagement. And actually he said that ideal conversation should end in 3 different types of consensus. The best outcome is complete consensus between the deliberators. The second best is the partial consensus and intersection of different sets of plans. And the third option occurs when there is no plan acceptable for all and when the choice is made by majority vote. However, Kitcher is consensualist, according to me. According to him, consensualism reflects democratic values, but not only democratic values. Consensus attained by democratic deliberation is epistemologically best way to reach the pan-human good. So it is important, according to me, to register that this kind of epistemological justification of democracy is internal epistemic justification. There is no true is here and quotation, because I do not want to enter in this metaphysical elaboration of true, but probably it would be necessary in discussion. There is no true or objectively correct decision independent from attained ideal or actual consensus. So this is internal epistemic justification, because epistemically justified is actually belief or stance attained by consensus. Also, I would like here to register that we have political justification of democracy based on consensus and epistemological justification of democracy based on consensus. Political justification of democracy based on consensus is that consensus is expression of collective will, and all of these three philosophers actually politically justify the democracy through this consensus. And there is also epistemological justification of democracy based on consensus as epistemologically best way to attain decisions about pan-human good and acceptable for all. It seems to me that this is the position of Habermas and Kitcher, but not of Rawls. So this is about consensualism. About proceduralism, and just a few words about proceduralism, and it seems to me veritism. Veritism is Goldman's title in his position. Proceduralists actually think that democratic decisions are legitimate because democratic procedures are epistemically best among morally available procedures of collective decision-making. What makes democratic decision legitimate is not only that they were produced by the fair procedure of the majority rule, but democratic procedure has some features that makes them epistemologically valuable or appropriately reliable. What is these features? This is the features of truth conducting, impartiality, argumentation, reasons. So they said that democratic procedures are conceived at least partly as procedures of rational interpersonal deliberation, which legitimacy lies in the procedure's impartiality among individuals, convictions, and arguments. So, what is important in this deliberation is that it is rational, it is based on arguments, that it is reason recognizing procedure. So, it seems to me once more that this proceduralist camp, we need to distinguish between democratic standards and epistemological standards. What is the democratic procedural standards? Is that we have the freedom and lack of coercion, formal and substantive equality of participants, what is designed to preserve autonomy and guard against objectionable deliberative outcomes. But what is the epistemological, epistemic standards of procedure? Democratic procedure of deliberation, which involves cognitive process of assessing argument, reason recognition, forming judgments provided by evidence, actually improve the quality of decisions because it makes more likely for outcomes to be rational, well justified, true, or just. So, why? So this is the epistemological value of the procedure. Also, it is important to be registered here in difference, in distinction with a consensual justification of democracy. We here have external, not internal, but external justification. Those who focus on consensus is the aim or mark of good deliberation do not earn the labor epistemic according to procedurals, because the rightness cannot be identified with what citizens agree upon, that is mere consensus. It is external justification. Epistemic claim, what is epistemologically valuable here, is that this procedure is valuable according to procedure independent standard of correctness or truth. It's the external justification. It seems to me that this position of the aspect. Okay, but politics is not a college seminar. So the proceduralists actually do not require the democratic procedures to be ideally epistemically reliable. Even imperfect tendency to produce epistemically correct outcomes and these procedures' epistemic value is sufficient for epistemic legitimacy of democracy. So it seems to me that we have here a question of priority in this proceduralist camp. Epistemological standards are only of secondary importance. Democratic rationale has a priority over epistemic rationale. We need to be democratically perfect and epistemologically, we have democratic perfect procedure, but we have epistemically valuable procedure, but it can be imperfect. They can show a tendency to produce epistemically correct outcomes. In this camp, as I said before, is Goldman himself. He said that reliable procedure of public deliberation need to have the features of truth conductiveness. Both consensus and mere public deliberation are not necessarily sufficient to yield reliable decisive outcomes. We need, Goldman said, we need to add additional constraints on the standards of public deliberation to appropriately satisfy epistemic rationale, and it seems to me I would agree with this Goldman's point. So, there is a third position, is the expertise. And it's obviously the consensual, as I said before, the consensualism and the proceduralism avoid the role of experts. And the natural question is what's wrong with it? Actually, while some prominent political philosophers completely ignore the epistemic justification of democracy, for instance, Cristiano or even Gauss, the vast majority of the people I mentioned here at the slide, the vast majority of epistemological approaches to democracy avoids the role of experts in democratic society. Why? What's wrong with epistemic ingredient in general, and what's wrong with the experts as borrower of this ingredient? The first, some people wonder if there are really correct and incorrect answers to political questions. So, because of that, actually, we do not need epistemic ingredient, epistemological justification of democracy. But if there are correct answers, why we should think that ill-informed citizens would be any good at discovering them? And if we allow epistemic standards, there is no reason not to consult a wise elite, contrary to our deep democratic convictions. So, what's wrong with epistemic ingredient? It's assumed that if we if we embrace epistemic ingredient, epistemological justification, epistemological value, we cannot avoid actually the rule of experts as people who is informed and possess the expertise for the problem solving. So the biggest objection and moral challenge to epistemic approaches is that it might tend to justify rule by knowers, so a kind of undemocratic epistocracy. So their crucial worry is how to bring in knowledge without people who want to have epistemic ingredient, how to bring in knowledge without privileging class of knowers. The truth need to be guided, but without illegitimately privileging the opinions of putative experts. So, the question is, what is undemocratic in privileging the opinion of experts? And I try to isolate four objections. First is the objections that there is no experts in politics. You know, the idea of democracy is not naturally plausible method of problem solving. You know, when we are coped with medical decisions, for instance, the most important are the expert stance. But politics is different. There is no political experts. Some people, the objection actually said, authority would need some other basis because it simply doesn't follow authority and political issues, would need some other basis because it simply doesn't follow from expertise. The second objection is that there is no expertise that is generally acceptable. So even if we accept there are genuine experts in politics, that there are people which are more accurate source of knowledge about what should be done than any democratic procedure could ever be, the objection is that there is no expertise that is generally acceptable in the right way. Namely, it's also the key point that experts' stances are not value-free. So we have here the myth of value natural experts. Deference to experts, said Kitcher, requires those experts to proceed according to objective standards. They should apprise the evidence dispassionately, uncorrupted by any judgments of value. However, Kitcher said, scientific practice typically does not live up to the standard of disinterested inquiry on which its authority is supposed to rest. Expert stances are infected by their special interests, ideological presuppositions, and inequalities of powers and no longer reflect human ends and interests of vast number of people. So, this is the second. The third objection on the involvement of experts and expertism is that if there are more objective experts, what makes them bosses? The mere fact that experts know better what to do is incapable of justifying their coercing other people to obey, partly because they might not accept that you know better what to do, or they might not accept that the expert's stance is correct. So this doubt blocks the inference from their expertise to their authority. Here we have the problem of deference to experts. To say that still doesn't seem right to me, but I shall judge it to be right because I expect this person or that thing to indicate reliably what is right, cannot be justified. So the deference to the expert is not justified. Experts should not be privileged because citizens cannot be expected or assumed to surrender their moral judgment, at least on important matters. And the fourth objection against expertism, it is said that expertism cannot embrace democratic values and ideals. So, democracy requires the commitment to epistemic equality. All citizens are entitled to their own opinions and values across the board. Experts' authoritarianism of Plato's Callipolis can seem clearly deficient to ideal and value of democracy. In an epistemic division of epistemic labor, some groups are privileged and are underestimated in their expertise because of their value judgments, while free competition among ideas is essential to democratic deliberation. So, here's conclusion. It seems to me, conclusion for this part. It seems to me that we need to register here again the question of priorities, namely epistemic reason, as we can saw from this criticism of expertism and from proceduralism and essentialism. Epistemic reason to believe the outcome is good or correct is not necessarily need. We need political and moral reasons to obey the law, and we shouldn't assume that authority and legitimacy lapses just whenever the procedure gets a wrong answer. So democracy need not to be epistemically best option, but epistemically best among other options that are generally acceptable in the way that political legitimacy requires. So democratic outcome is legitimate even if it is incorrect or epistemically suboptimal, but not vice versa. So it seems to me that from proceduralism and consensualism or in epistemical approaches that avoid the role of experts actually implies the conclusion that democratic outcome is legitimate even if it is incorrect or epistemically suboptimal, but not vice versa. The outcome need to perfectly satisfy political standards of democracy, but imperfectly epistemic standards. So epistemic standards of the secondary importance. It seems to me that we can do something something that we can strengthen the epistemological justification of democratic procedure. Namely, the challenge is here the balance between political and epistemic standards. I'll try to argue in favor of the position that consensualism and proceduralism actually favor the political standards against the epistemic standards. It seems to me that we can attain a better balance between political and epistemic standards. So the crucial problem is to decide how to integrate the plausible idea that with respect to some issues, some people know more than others, with a commitment to democratic ideals and principles. My starting thesis.
Let us speak for 27 minutes.
I'll try to finish. My starting thesis are rejecting any expertise is non-democratic, oppressing minorities, in terms of oppressing minorities, as well as denying any division of epistemic labor by leaving everything to a small number of authorities. Second, the epistemic quality of democratic deliberation generates their legitimacy. So I think that it's very important to have the epistemic justification of democracy, and these epistemic standards need to be equal or in good balance with political justification. And the third, since experts can improve the epistemic quality of decisions, experts need to contribute to the epistemic justification of democracy. We need to embrace the role of experts in this epistemic justification of democracy. Let us remind on objections against expertise. The first is that there is no expert in politics. The second is that there is no expertise that is generally acceptable. Experts' stances are not value-free. Third is that if there are objective experts, what makes them bosses? Deference to experts are not justified despite of their expertise. And fourth, expertism cannot embrace democratic values and ideals. what I would like to reply to these objections. First, I would like to appeal to the problem of widespread incompetence. I will try to claim that in spite of the well-infected scientific practices, of well-infected stances of experts, experts exist even in politics. And the third, deference to experts are epistemically and politically justified. How? If there is nothing epistemologically and politically problematic in trusting other people's testimonies, trusting experts also need to be epistemologically and politically justified. Deference to experts are justified because of derivative authority of experts. So I will try to explain this. So what is the problem of consensualism and proceduralism? In sub-ideal epistemic circumstances, it is real epistemic circumstances, public deliberation does not guarantee the best available social decisions because of the widespread incompetence. So, majority of people are not only inadequately informed, but also they are not interested in numerous topics, they are not educated enough to absorb numerous topics, they are not motivated to invest time and cognitive resources in numerous topics, they do not have enough time, etc., etc. So we have here well-documented fact of widespread incompetence delivered by social psychology findings. For instance, only 13% of more than 2,000 political questions examined could be answered correctly by 75% or more of those asked, and only 41% could be answered by more than half the public. So the Karpin and Keter conclude many of the facts known by relatively small percentage of the public seem critical to understanding the political world. Here I put some of that. Also, public deliberation as such has not feature of truth conductedness. This is, namely, this is Sunstein's point. Informed people in great many circumstances refrain of disclosing what they take themselves to know, either in the light of the informational pressure coming out of whatever happens to be the majority position, or the social pressure associated with the risk of social sanctions against dissenters. So, the second, if the informed people decide to disclose their information, the impact of their information on the deliberating group would not be particularly great due to so-called common knowledge or the common information effect. What is this? The influence of particular item or information is directly and positively related to the number of group members who have knowledge of that item before the group discussion and judgment. So, what makes a difference when it comes to having an impact on group judgment is not so much the quality of information as the quantity of people bringing a particular piece of information to the table. So it seems to me that the people who rely on the epistemological value of procedure actually were too optimistic concerning the value of this or the result of this deliberation process. I will skip this because I do not have enough time. So only a minority of deliberators can be expected to be informed of on the relevant matters. Social psychology evidence suggests that it is the viewpoint of the majority, not of the informed minorities, that can be expected to drive a relevant group judgments. Aggregate competence of deliberating groups is overestimated. It could not be expected that informed minorities would drive group judgments. So, this kind of results, this kind of findings actually provoke deliberative pessimism at some authors. But I would not say that we need to reject the deliberative process. We need to be aware that social deliberation runs the risk of depriving the practice of epistemologically important perspectives every time those perspectives are represented by a minority of experts. So, I would not like to suggest that social deliberation, public deliberation, democratic deliberation is therefore worthless as a method of making social decisions. But there is place for improvement, and it seems to me that there is a place for additional constraints closely aligned with the strengthening of the role of the experts. Yeah, it seems to me that I... 35, yeah. Five more minutes. So, I would like to say that experts exist. And it's very important to realize that expertise is not absolute. It's not the question of objective, you know, or the possession of possession of the truth. But expertise is a largely a comparative matter. Experts are more effective in epistemic problem solving. Experts have more beliefs in true proposition and or fewer beliefs in false propositions. Experts are better trained for dealing with epistemic issues. Experts are better in detecting inconsistency, fallacious inferences, unwarranted generalization, and false premises. So, there is also experts, according to this, there is also expertise in moral and political issues. We can actually, it seems to me that we may talk about the expertise also in the moral and political issues. Because expertise includes comparatively better competence in dealing with argument, prejudices, ideologies, value-infected stances. So we assume that experts will be better in handling with value-infected stances. Moreover, it seems to me reasonable the presupposition of police. It seems to me that any public deliberation about moral and political issues need to be sensitive to the non-moral facts. So we cannot say there is no experts in political issues, because political issues actually assume expertise in non-political issues. So if we have the experts in non-political issues, actually it is supposed that we have the people who are, you know, experts also in this comparative sense in political issues. Believing what is true is in the service of doing what is right. Disagreement over non-moral data influences the disagreement over what ought to be done. So, it seems to me the deference to experts is epistemically and democratically justified. We have the problem of deference, and the problem of deference can be epistemic problem and also can be democratic problem. We have the epistemic problem is problem how to be justified in acceptance of other people, expert stances, if we are not capable to assess their correctness. You know, how to surrender if we can't understand. So it is an epistemic problem. How to trust, how to deference to the expert. On the other side, we have democratic problem. The democratic problem is how to obey other people, how to obey expert stances if we are not capable to apprise their rightness. But it seems to me that people simply do not have enough expertise to apprise the content of many reports they accept. Even scientists does not have enough evidence to apprise the reports of other specialists in the field. So, if we cannot apprise, if we cannot understand, if we cannot assess the other people and the expert stances, it does not mean that their trust, the trust to them is epistemologically unjustified, blind or gullible. It is based on our epistemic need and the evidence about reliability of previous trusting practices. So I will skip this. Yeah. I'll try to conclude my story. To conclude. So it seems to me that blind trust or surrender to stance withhold errors is not both epistemically and democratically justified. Also, no one testimony, no one report, no one stances should be adopted in an epistemically justified way if it is not assessed or supported by some body of evidence. However, if we have enough evidence about reliability of expert stances, because we know that they are reliable guides to correct answers, it is not reasonable, it is not epistemically justified not to trust experts because their stances are different to ours or if we cannot apprise the whole content of experts' stances. So, some authors can doubt that the participant, even if she is decently competent and non-egoistic, we highly evaluate credibility of experts and reasonably accept the expert stance, even if he finds out experts more competent than himself about some issues. But it seems to me that such an epistemic conduct is not epistemically justified. Reject or suspend the trust to a report for which we have evidence that is delivered by a reliable source is not epistemically justified. Democratic rationale about the epistemic equality cannot justify the rejection of experts' stances. And final, so it seems to me that experts' epistemic distinctiveness cannot be described in terms of fundamental authority. They are not bosses, but only in terms of derivative authority. There is nothing undemocratic concerning the principles of epistemic equality in derivative authority, because experts differ from other informants only in the degree of trustworthiness about a particular topic. They are a reliable source, not in a different position.
Thank you.